Welcome to the 2021 May in Motion Award Ceremony. My name is Nicole Stern, Commuteride Outreach Coordinator. I will be your MC for today. I'm very excited for you to join us. Before we get into our program, I just wanted to let you know that there is a Q&A box for you to ask any questions on what you're hearing today. Our featured speaker, David DeRosa from AECOM, will be the only one that will answer your questions live. We will, however, make sure to get your questions to the individual and have them get back to you. To kick off our event, I have the honor of introducing our newest team member, Tessa Greegor. Tessa took the helm of Commuteride Manager last October. She came to us from Fort Collins, Colorado, where she managed the city's active modes and bike program for over 7 years. Tessa grew up in Boise and is thrilled to have the opportunity to be back in the Treasure Valley supporting smart commute options for the community. Tessa, the virtual stage is all yours.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Nicole. Welcome, everyone. We are thrilled to be with you today to celebrate the commitments of local businesses to sustainable transportation. While we would love to be with everyone in person, we are very grateful that we were able to bring May in Motion back this year after a year of being away. And hosting this event virtually aligns with the mission of the campaign, as you all have smart commuted to be here today. So thank you for that. We're also excited that this year's celebration is a more inclusive event in that it's open to the public and will reach people throughout the Treasure Valley that may not have otherwise been able to attend in person. We have an exciting agenda for you today and certainly hope you'll stay around until the end, where we'll be recognizing the 50+ businesses that participated in May in Motion and their award levels. Leading up to that, we'll hear from two of Treasure Valley's largest employers, St. Luke's Health System and Idaho Power, as they share insight into their sustainable transportation programs and the tremendous work they are doing to foster commute options and mobility for their employees and the community while advancing environmental sustainability. We're excited to have David DeRosa from AECOM as our featured speaker and looking forward to his presentation, which will move us into the future as he talks about emerging mobility trends. Last, but certainly not least, we'll close the day with highlights from this year's May in Motion campaign and a collective celebration of the participating businesses. To start, we'd like to share a little bit about Commuteride and a few upcoming initiatives. As a program of the Ada County Highway District, Commuteride focuses on providing safe, efficient, and equitable transportation options for the Treasure Valley. We do this through ride-sharing services, education and outreach programs, and through partnerships with organizations throughout the valley. ACHD began the ride-sharing program back in the 1970s, starting with a carpool matching service and a couple years later launching a van pool program. Today, we operate the oldest multi-employer van pool program in the country and provide public transit for community members throughout the Treasure Valley, providing access to jobs whether in downtown Boise, Meridian, Mountain Home, or elsewhere. Over the years, Commuteride has evolved into a multifaceted transportation demand management program, bringing in initiatives like May in Motion, Ridetober, Share the Ride Idaho, and Commuteride Works, all designed to support businesses in developing commute programs while supporting commuters in utilizing smart transportation options. Collectively, these programs have increased mobility and access to transportation options while improving the health of our communities and environment. The success of these programs, however, is a reflection of the support and commitment from everyone here today, the business community, local jurisdictions and organizations, elected officials, and of course, the commuters. I feel very fortunate to have been invited to join the Commuteride team this last fall. This amazingly unique team works every day to provide safe and sustainable transportation options for people across the Treasure Valley, while still finding ways to keep things fun, creative, and inspiring. Nicole Stern, Kathleen, and Christina lead the outreach and marketing initiatives for Commuteride and are the inspiration and tremendous work behind May in Motion. And the rideshare and van pool operations team led by Grant Pelly with Nicole and Craig do incredible work to keep a far-reaching van pool program safe, reliable, and cutting edge. Thank you all for the work you do every day. Today, of course, we're here to celebrate May in Motion, Commuteride's annual awards campaign, which began 16 years ago when organizations came together to promote the use of smart commute options such as vanpool, carpool, transit, biking, and walking, and now more than ever, working from home. Even with the spin on May in Motion this year, the power of this campaign, which I've been able to witness just in my year with Commuteride, is impressive. The combination of education, incentives, friendly competition, social engagement, and of course, the benefits participants and employers realize of smart commuting have removed thousands of car trips from our roadways and eliminated hundreds of tons of carbon from our atmosphere, and have resulted in actual behavior change, inspiring people across multiple businesses to try smart commuting during this campaign and sustaining that behavior beyond the month of May. This year, we had over 50 participating businesses ranging from Treasure Valley's largest employers to small businesses and nonprofits. And although May in Motion looked a little different, the campaign served multiple purposes, including providing a platform for reconnecting with sustainable transportation as the foundation. A huge thank you to all the businesses that participated this year, and of course to those who have participated in years past, and for your commitment to commuting options and ensuring your employees have access to those options through benefits, education, on-site facilities, and fun campaigns like May in Motion. We have a fantastic group of sponsors this year, and we can't thank you enough for your generous support. Thank you to Valley Regional Transit, our title sponsor, who provided no-cost transit throughout the month of May. We'd also like to thank our other sponsors at the advocate level, Capital City Development Corporation, or CCDC. Our partners include ACHD, CityGo, City of Boise, and Idaho Transportation Department. At the supporting level, thank you to Clean Cities Treasure Valley, Idaho, Compass, Idaho Power, and Simplot. And thank you to our friends, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, In the Bag Promotions, Keller Associates, Kittleson and Associates, St. Luke's, and the Treasure Valley Cycling Alliance. Before we move on to our featured speakers, I want to highlight a few Commuteride initiatives we're excited about. These are programs designed specifically to support local businesses and organizations in achieving goals related to transportation, mobility, equity, climate, and economic development, particularly as we move out of the pandemic and strive to build back stronger, healthier, and more resilient than before. While vanpool is not new, we are excited about the untapped potential of vanpool transit for our region in combination with the fixed route and on-demand transit system and continuous improvements to bike and pedestrian infrastructure. Starting at $1 a trip, vanpool offers a low-cost, efficient commute option for people regardless of where they live. And we're seeing more employers recognize the value of subsidizing vanpool alongside transit for their employees. And in doing so, affording people the ability to not have to pay in order to access work. While vanpool may not work for everyone, it's certainly a fantastic tool in the commuter options toolbox and one that continues to gain relevancy as a transportation-oriented solution to current challenges related to growth, housing affordability, and even employee recruitment. We're excited about the changes ahead for the regional vanpool program as we respond to the evolving transportation and commute landscape. And this summer, we're partnering with Valley Regional Transit to complete a regional vanpool study and look forward to working with the business community and local jurisdictions to identify vanpool opportunities and solutions that align with your respective transportation needs and goals. A couple years ago, Commuteride launched its Commuteride Works program, and we're excited to offer this to any organization that's interested, whether a new business or fully established. Essentially, this is a commute program consulting service we offer at no cost, where we work with businesses to develop a commute program and identify and help implement strategies to help achieve that business's transportation goals and ultimately provide employees with effective commute options. New this summer, we will be launching a Commuteride Certified program where we will be offering an e-course that will train representatives from businesses to become certified commute coordinators, giving them the tools and resources to serve as a coordinator and champion for that organization's commuting and transportation program. This program will also offer the opportunity for businesses to become a certified Commuteride business or a designated commute-friendly business. We look forward to sharing more details about this program in the coming weeks. And last but not least, next week, we will be opening a new workplace mobility grant program, which will provide financial assistance of up to $3,000, along with additional resources for outreach activities to small businesses, fewer than 100 employees, located in Ada County, with the goal of supporting mobility enhancements for their employees. Items like bike racks, repair stands, bikes for employee bike share programs, transit passes will all be eligible expenses under this program. And we're certainly open to other ideas for how this funding can support that business's transportation goals. The first round applications will open next week on June 24th and will be due at the end of July. And we certainly hope you'll consider applying if you're eligible and then helping to share the word about this program. Details will be available on our website at commuteride.com. And with that, I will hand it back over to Nicole Stern.
Thank you, Tessa. I know I can say on behalf of the whole Commuteride team, we're eager to bring those initiatives to the public and continue to bring smart, sustainable transportation to all. Next, we have the pleasure to bring you St. Luke's Health Systems and Idaho Power, both May in Motion sponsors going back to the very beginning of May in Motion. We work year-round with both organizations to support their business sustainability goals and their employee commute needs by educating and encouraging their commute choices. First, we'll hear from Stephanie Wicks, Sustainability Manager with St. Luke's Health Systems. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to start sharing. I can't share while another participant is. Okay, thank you. Let me share. Okay, let me know if you can see what I'm sharing. Okay, great. Thank you. I am Stephanie Wicks, and I'm with St. Luke's. St. Luke's started our environmental sustainability group about 9 months ago, and I am excited to be with St. Luke's and excited to be here at the May in Motion event today. I am, let's see, having a little trouble. Let me get down here. Okay, who we are. So many of you here in Southern Idaho likely know who St. Luke's is, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a description of how big we are. We actually have 9 hospitals and large medical offices and approximately 200 clinics that are located across Southern Idaho and even into Eastern Oregon. We also have 15,000 employees, approximately 15,000 employees, and we're the largest private employer in Idaho. And when we think about transportation, we need to think about not only our employees, but also our patients that are coming to those facilities, and how do they get there, and then where about parking, how do they park? So again, our environmental sustainability group has been formalized, but prior to that, St. Luke's has been committed to environmental sustainability in pockets across the system. And so by formalizing this group, what we're actually doing is kind of gathering and coordinating all of those efforts. So trying to make those programs that we support and incent across the systems clear to the employees and patients wherever they live, so that they can understand what options are available. We're also putting in place a strategy coordinating how are we supporting alternative transportation and parking, because those two things are linked. And as the largest employer, we have about 80% of our employees that are actually driving into work. So how are they getting into work? Where are they parking? And how does that affect parking for patients? So they're all intertwined and key to the work that we're doing as our program from a transportation and a parking standpoint. So what we've been doing the last 6 to 9 months is we've been coordinating and communicating. So we have an internal website, kind of intranet, and it's called The Source. So we put together a source page where our employees can access the different work streams that we're working on, events, those matrix about what are the different transportation options that we have available. We've been highlighting our van pooling efforts, participating in bike to work and bike security. So we do have bike security at all our facilities, highlighting how you get access, etc. So we've been kind of building on all of those pockets of information and bringing them together. We've also been working to collect data. So we've had the opportunity to do 2 surveys. We were able to get into our all-employee health assessment survey, which has very high participation level. And so we were able to get a couple of questions in there. So we have great data on how are people getting to work and how many miles are they traveling into work. So that's been very insightful into our employee base. We've also done an environmental sustainability survey, asking our employees, what do they think environmental sustainability is? What are the priorities we should be working on? And transportation has certainly been one of the higher responses. We've also been working with ACHD on cleaning up our Share the Ride Idaho interface. So it was a little, it had been unmanaged, I'd say, for a while. So we got that all cleaned up, and we're starting to really use it and get good data from people that are using it. And we've been incenting people to use it. So we participated in an Earth Day challenge, and we asked our employees to sign up and track 3 weeks of data. And we put together a badge that they would earn a badge and earn a free lunch. So getting people to start tracking data. We also did a bike to work challenge that we could track either on Share the Ride Idaho and send a picture to us. So we've got some incentives, some swag, and we intend on continuing to use this interface so that we can keep tracking our data and help with the data overall. And it's working. The incentives are working. We've got our Share the Ride Idaho participation has gone up by 30% and seems to be growing. We're getting now good data from the Share the Ride Idaho website and starting to see the impacts of teleworking. We've got a big biking community, so trying to understand how to encourage that and incent that. And we're also taking this information and starting to look at employee at parking. So how many spaces do we have? Who's using it? We've been getting requests for EV charging stations. We've got some parking that is paid. So we're trying to put all of the parking and the transportation into these strategies so we can consolidate our budgets, our events, and that they kind of work together for alternative transportation and our impact in the communities. And thank you for having me here and for letting us participate. Back to you, Nicole.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. We're super excited about the initiatives that you guys have started or restarted, and your continued efforts. We look forward to. Next, you will hear and meet Will Weedon, Idaho Power's Education and Outreach Energy Advisor for the Treasure Valley. It's all yours, Russ.
Thanks so much, Nicole. I'll see if I can share my screen as well. Let's see if this works. Did that pop up for you? Awesome, thank you so much. It is a privilege to be with all of you today, and many thanks to Nicole and Kathleen and everyone for inviting Idaho Power. We're so privileged to be with you today, and very proud to be sponsors of May in Motion every year, as Nicole mentioned from the very beginning. Such a great program for Idaho Power. Many of you probably know our headquarters is at 12th and Main Street in downtown. Of the 2,000 employees that we have across our service territory, there are about 500 or a little over 500 employees that work at our headquarters. So many opportunities for employees using alternative transportation and that sort of thing. So we're very pleased to be with you today. Just to give you some high level information about Idaho Power that really ties into what we're talking about today. Many of you probably know this, but in 2019, Idaho Power announced to the public, to our shareholders, to our customers and the general public, that by the year 2045, we would be providing 100% clean energy to all of our customers. Now, that is a very ambitious goal, as you can imagine. Anytime you say you're going to be 100% of anything, you can only fail from there. So we definitely do not want to fail. But let's talk about what that means. When people say clean energy, most people think renewable or green power, which definitely is a piece of the picture. But as many of you probably know, clean for us means no carbon emissions. So we are going to minimize our carbon emissions, the greenhouse gases, to zero in the next 24 or 25 years. So you may wonder, how in the world can you do that? Well, let's explain, again, very high level, where we are today and where we hope to be in the next 25 years. So Idaho Power got started way back in 1916, so we're about 105 years old this year, but here is how we all got started. Today we have 590,000 customers starting way back in 1916 with 18,000 customers. So a lot of growth, and as we know, there's even more growth as we speak. And so Idaho Power is addressing the energy needs of this ongoing growth. Well, for years now, those 17 dams on the Snake River, starting with Swan Falls and ending in the 1960s with Hell's Canyon, Brownlee, and Oxbow, those 17 dams have provided the majority of our energy for all of these years. But because of growth and because of progress, of course, we've had to bring on other resources, one of those being coal. Now, for years, probably the last 60 years, we've had 3 coal plants and 3 natural gas plants, along with a little diesel plant. But right up here in the corner, I'll see if I can use my little laser pointer here. Right up here in the corner, there used to be another little dot right there, and that was our Boardman plant. That plant is now no longer in operation. This last year, our partner, Portland Gas and Electric and Idaho Power, we decided that we would be shutting down that coal plant. The other 2 plants, our Valmy plant in Nevada and our Jim Bridger plant in Wyoming, eventually will be shut down. We're thinking probably over the next decade, those 2 would be shut down as well. So this is, again, leading to that 100% clean energy goal by the year 2045. And this is just one of many steps that we will be taking. So to give you an idea of what our energy mix is, what does Idaho Power use to generate electricity? As I mentioned, most every year, about 40% of our energy comes from those 17 hydro plants. But as we bring on more geothermal, more solar, and more wind, eventually the coal will finally just go away. And that's what we're looking for. But as you can see, if you compare Idaho Power's energy mix to the rest of the United States, there are some major differences. Collectively across the United States, a lot of fossil fuels still being used because they just don't have the resources available, the renewable resources, the clean resources that we enjoy here in the Pacific Northwest. So we do believe that we are well on our way to that clean energy goal by 2045. So having said all of that, this puts us in a very good position to offer all sorts of great alternative transportation and a lot of different things just for our employees alone. As Nicole mentioned, we are a longtime supporter of May in Motion, and generally every year we have events hosted at our headquarters building in downtown, as well as our Boise Operations Center, which is where I work, and that's out at Franklin and 5 Mile. We certainly hope to continue those in the future, and we're pretty sure we will. We were very honored 2 years ago to be the recipient of the Platinum Award from May in Motion. We're so pleased to receive that award. But again, it's very indicative of where our employees stand in terms of where we want to be in terms of clean energy and alternative transportation. Just to give you a few little ideas about what we have been doing through the years, we have installed a number of bike racks and repair stations. And one of those, and probably the main one, is at our corporate headquarters there at 12th and Main. This gentleman here, this is a friend of mine. His name is Mike Deering. He has been riding he's kind of one of our power users, if you will. He's been riding his bike since he started with Idaho Power, probably even before that. I am pretty sure Mike doesn't even have a car anymore, which is fantastic. Maybe we could all strive for that. We also have a number of employees, more and more all the time, especially in the downtown core, that are taking advantage of the Valley Regional Transit System, of course. And Idaho Power still covers the cost of that transportation for those employees. And they are coming from all over the place, from the bench, from the North End, from Harris Ranch, and a lot of other places, employees choosing to use the transit system. Many of you know that Idaho Power, over the last just few years, we have incorporated a lot of electric vehicles into our fleet, and they are available for employees to use for business purposes. We have 4 of them downtown, and generally they are the Chevy Volts and the Bolts and the Nissan Leafs and a couple of others. But charging stations, of course, are a big concern. For many years, a lot of people were really concerned about where can I charge these things, after I leave home. And by the way, about 85% of the people that own electric vehicles are charging their vehicles at home. But that was a big concern for many years. Where can I charge my car? And so company to install charging stations at various locations. And of course, we do have several stations right there at our headquarters, right across the street. But we have also been partnering with the city of Caldwell. Many of you probably know this as well. Charging stations downtown Caldwell. The city of Twin Falls currently has a couple of stations in the downtown area. Here's something that's very, very exciting. We have started installing charging stations at our more remote locations, at campgrounds. And we're very pleased just recently to have installed a couple of charging stations at our Copperfield park in the Hells Canyon area. And so those people who are driving those sorts of vehicles and want to go on a camping trip, very, very inviting for them to understand that we now have lots of charging stations available. At our Boise Operations Center, where I work, as I mentioned earlier, and recently we installed stations at the Payette Operations Center and the Twin Falls Power Plant. So lots and lots of availability. Oh, also in the city of Huntington, Oregon. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of partnerships with downtown, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and some of the other businesses downtown where we are partnering with them to make available these charging stations. And as we all know, there are lots of apps that you can install if you're planning a trip. One of the big concerns was where can I charge my car as I go forward here? So a lot of information here on apps as to where you can plot out your trip, and you can see many, many more being installed. One of the other big concerns, of course, with electric vehicles is cost and range. And the really good news, of course, is that the price is coming way down. They're more comparable now to the normal internal combustion engine cars. But here's what's some really exciting things for Idaho Power. It's more than just cars for us now. We have started purchasing a lot of heavy equipment that are either hybrids or electric vehicles, like our heisters and forklifts. Even some of our service vehicles now are hybrids or electric vehicles. And one of the things that's kind of cute, we just a couple of years ago, we helped partner with the Meridian Parks Department to purchase this little vehicle called the Egg, and it is for the volunteers to drive around the parks, picking up trash and doing the maintenance work. So we were very pleased to partner with the Parks Department out there. So our goals for electric vehicles, of course, over the next decade, we hope to be 75% electric in our passenger cars, but all of our new purchases from there on will be 100% electric. Some of those other vehicles I just mentioned, including SUVs, 35% of them will be electric. And then those interesting little things like forklifts and some of our heavy equipment, 75% electric by 2030, and all new purchases will be 100% electric. And then having said that, as we know, as we're starting to come out of the pandemic, a lot of requests, a lot of concern, a lot of interest in telework. And our company is exploring a lot of different ideas and a lot of different options for employees to not necessarily come back to the offices. We're starting to phase people back in a little bit, but people are starting to ask questions. Can I work from home? And so the company is very, very open to the idea of letting certain work groups and certain employees in certain regions to work from home at least part-time or maybe even full-time. So that would take, of course, lots of cars off the road as well. All right, well, with that, I will stop for just a moment and turn the time back over to Nicole. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Russ. That was great. I love always hearing about Idaho Power and what you're working on, and we look forward to hearing about your continued success. So when we were planning for this year's featured speaker, we couldn't help but take into account the last year and a half's use of technology. Technology assisted us in everything from our Zoom business meetings, ordering our groceries, to supporting our local restaurants and ordering takeout. Our featured speaker today, David DeRosa, is no stranger to using technology to improve mobility. David is a transportation technology planning manager with AECOM. His recent experience has focused on transportation demand management and its relation to emerging mobility technologies such as connected and automated vehicles. He has an extensive resume of planning and delivery of transportation projects aimed at improving the transportation network and reducing single occupancy vehicle trips. These include everything from automated vehicle planning and implementation to the Hyperloop, which is really cool. Please note that if you have any questions for David during his presentation, you can add them to the Q&A box below on your screen. I'll gather those and we can discuss those for a few moments after his presentation. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Nicole. I will start sharing my screen here in a second. And I'll give that a moment to come through. Looks like it should be coming through on my end. Someone just feel free to yell at me if it's not coming through, but look, okay, good. Thanks, Nicole. All right, thank you, everyone. So this is about a 30-minute total presentation, but the presentation itself is only about 22 minutes. And then, like Nicole said, hopefully we can get into some Q&A. I'll go through a couple different topics. As Nicole mentioned, here's my background and my role at AECOM. But here is the content that we'll talk about today. So first, the pandemic, obviously, really big topic that is affecting the entire world. So how could I do a presentation like this without talking about it? I'm going to go through a Better Normal hackathon that AECOM and my team put together a while ago, and some of the outcomes from that on how we can transition using the pandemic as an opportunity to a better normal, not just normal. And then a travel behavior change project that we're working on right now that is leveraging a really good use of data and data science. And then we'll go through some trends specifically around the mobility data ecosystem. That's a pretty complicated world. So I just wanted to give an oversight and background on that to you all. And then I'll wind it up with some of the trends and the latest things we're seeing on different modes of transportation. So like I mentioned, the pandemic, and we held a workshop or a hackathon called Better Normal. And these resources I'm about to show you are available online, but it was a group that we put together on a Zoom call, kind of almost a very similar size to this. And we had breakout rooms, people representing transportation and mobility, environment, natural resources, and as well as buildings. We have a buildings and places group at AECOM, and we had elected officials, public government representatives, people from academia, all participating. We did a really fun brainstorming exercise on a website called Mural. If those of you if you've heard about it, it's a whiteboarding exercise where everybody can be in it. We had 50 people in it at once, all dragging around Post-it notes and adding their ideas and voting on different topics. That's kind of a tangent, but it was a lot of fun and led to some really good communication and brainstorming from a lot of people all at once. So like that in itself was kind of a win of the pandemic, being able to get all these people together across time zones and things. So anyway, a little bit of a side story, but here's where what we did was we came up all those topics I mentioned before: mobility, buildings and places, environment, natural resources. we came up with a toolkit for each of those, and that's what's available online. And here's the toolkit or the action plan. And the text is obviously way too small to read. I don't intend you to read it all, but it's a step-by-step process, mostly for public government agencies and jurisdictions to help navigate the process of what they could do now, planning for a better future. And we have some tips and guidance on things to do, things to look out for. It was a really beneficial exercise overall, and was ultimately focusing on equalizing the public right-of-way. So when we think about TDM and different modes of transportation, that was one of the themes of that particular exercise in that workshop. Then transitioning over to travel behavior change. I'm going to show you here in a second a video of a project that we're working on now. It's a 3-year pilot project, and it's fundamentally a transit fare sensitivity analysis. And by that, I mean the transit agency is lowering the fare on certain lines, and then we're seeing how that impacts ridership and people's travel behavior choices and their modes. There is going to be some additional service provided, like additional bus routes and added frequency as well, but that's kind of rolling on throughout the 3-year pilot project. And what I think is also really interesting, what I want to show you today, is a unique application of this Microsoft Power BI. That's a business intelligence. It's a specific software that allows really complicated and a lot of data to be shown in a more visually attractive and understanding way. And then ultimately there's some ridership and mode share tracking. So let me jump into the video and let's cross fingers and hope this works. It looks like it is. I was hoping to actually have our data scientist that made this dashboard jump into the presentation today, but she had a conflict, so she couldn't. So she actually recorded this video that we're watching. But what I want to show you here, a ton of information on the screen, and this is really for, like, we provided this as AECOM, but it's for the consultant. This could be made publicly accessible if a client wanted to, but it is for people that are really familiar with the data. So it does kind of seem a little bit overwhelming. But what it's doing is tracking here. Hopefully my mouse is coming through on the screen. These 2 different shades of blue are the different lines that they're experimenting with on the fare reduction. And what the blue line down here on the bottom, these 2 blue lines, is showing the percent of ridership of the whole system on those 2 lines. And what you can see here, when the pandemic hit, there was a pretty quick reversal of percentage changing. They became more popular. And then things normalized a little bit. And then starting in January is when this fare analysis, or the fare adjustment, took place. And you can see another shift in the ridership of those 2 lines in particular. And what the mouse is doing here is showing you a little bit of how the actual software works. You can hover over things and get snapshots. You can click deeper into them. You get a lot of information. Now we're back out at the sort of the table of contents. We're going to go into some bus ridership information. What I forgot to mention was what we just saw before were rail lines. They were commuter rail lines. To balance this and make sure that we weren't just with the fare reduction, that we weren't just transitioning bus riders to commuter lines, we're also then monitoring ridership of similar bus routes to make sure that it's we're actually getting new riders, not just changing modes. And so there's lines here. What's really interesting, they're filtered by some bus routes that you can see in a moment. She's clicking, and you can click on a line and everything else grays out and shows you the data of that particular line that you're looking at. And what I also really like is this map in the lower right corner that instantly changes as you're clicking around this dashboard, selecting the various, basically the inputs that you want to see within a given dashboard. So there's also text searches. It's really in my mind, it's a way of which we're combining data science and transportation planning and route planning together to help inform all these things like ridership and mode share. So here's I think the last sequence that I want to show you, and this is by mode. This is actually information taken from Replica, which is a mobility data provider. So I'll be talking about them in a few minutes when I talk about the mobility ecosystem. But Replica is a cell phone, is gaining this information from cell phone. And you can see as you change the inputs on driving and carpooling, you can track this over time, number of trips, the average weekday modes this happens to be measured by a quarterly basis on the calendar. And so that's the overview of what we're doing and how we're using data sets and mobility data in this post-pandemic world to help transit clients make sure that they're providing the best service they can to the general public. With that, I will go on to the next segment. So we're going to transition into mobility data. And what is mobility data? I have a cute, cool looking word cloud here because it's full of buzzwords. Everyone says they have it. It's got a very startup vibe to it and these splashy infographics and such, but what is it really? And the answer is complicated. Here's a slide that I'm showing from just Israel's mobility landscape. So these are companies operating, either created in or operating in Israel. And it's up here just to show you how complex the mobility ecosystem is, to also recognize it's important to put a lens or a filter on where in the ecosystem are you focused. There's in-vehicle data, there's hardware, there's software, there's all these different types there's electrification, obviously, there's the connectivity and just of the data itself. I think we're going to see on the next slide, I'm scanning this real quick, it's the next slide, but the important part is, I think, understanding this and when someone says they have mobility data or they're a mobility company, you're like, well, where within the vertical of the mobility ecosystem are you talking about? What piece of the pie? And so it's just important to recognize that once you start talking about large data sets and data mobility. Here's a little bit more of a refined version of that, or a little bit smaller view, if you will. And this is around a smart mobility ecosystem. Other words for this are mobility as a service. And it's really trying to integrate and bring together all the different mobility options we have. So when we talk about providing employees with options, literally access to options for a different mode of transportation to get to and from work, it's looking at a map like this and recognizing a figure like this and recognizing that there are all these different players within this ecosystem. So you've got your classic navigators, if you will, that are helping people get to and from. You've got the actual providers of the public transportation or the transportation network companies. Payment and mobile ticketing is a really interesting part of this piece of the puzzle. It's a very important part, and there's a lot of people trying to work on getting the market share to be that provider, because you're talking about, in this case, someone that you're talking about easing the hurdles of someone that wants to take multiple modes on one trip to get to school, a campus, a job, an airport, what have you, and being able to do it all within one app, to plan it, to track it, and to pay for it all within one app. And so this payment and mobile ticketing is a really, like I said, a big component of this puzzle, and a really critical component of it. You've got the people that are monitoring the traffic. So there's Waze, there's InRix, Remix. These are some of the people that put out those, list of most congested cities every year, and monitoring congestion and simply the numbers on mobility and ridership. The technology itself, both hardware and software, a lot of players in this space. And then this is what I was referring to on the last slide, the actual connectivity. We got to get this data, between the rider and the provider and get that all worked out. So a lot of cellular data companies really involved in that landscape as well. Let's see, the next one. Here are some of the growing capabilities that we have, and specifically relationships with mobility providers. This is either people that we have worked on, companies we've worked with on providing solutions to our, mostly I'll say to our transit agency clients, but then also sometimes on the employer side of things. So Waze Carpool, for example, we work with, on some of our TDM programs, we work with Waze Carpool to get data and get reports from them as to mode share. And then also as AECOM as a company, from the employer perspective, we offer benefits to our employees to use Waze Carpool to try to help balance that mode share and the high peak, commuting hours, getting people, again, offering people access to different modes of transportation. And then finally, we have some of the clients that we work with. DDOT is a transit agency in Washington, D.C. This is LADOT, Los Angeles DOT. That's where I'm at, and that's where I live and work, is Los Angeles. And then some agencies in the Northeast and also down in Georgia, sort of just representative client groups that are in this space and very interested in this future of mobility. I will go on now to an update on the latest modes and nearing just a couple more slides before ending the presentation and going to the Q&A. But emerging mobility trends. I'll go through. I've got some slides on several of these, but not all of them. I think ones that I'll just mention here that I don't have slides on, the electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. That's what you think it is. That's, flying cars and flying Ubers and Lyfts. And it's been a promise for a long time, flying cars. And I would say that we're seeing transit and city clients really starting to pay attention to this and starting to think about the policies, regulations, and laws that will be required to actually offer more vehicles in the airspace flying around cities. And that's a really big challenge. And that's a long-term goal to implement those policies. It's complicated, but it's coming. Certain cities around the country are taking that seriously and have spun up departments specifically within their organizations to focus on this. And there's even a few headlines you can read here and there. One of them in Los Angeles of buildings in downtown beginning to offer landing pads, putting it into their architectural designs to try to plan for this future and allow this type of mobility to take place. What we're seeing on the screen here is that, for people, but there are also architects implementing little landing zones in, high-rise apartment buildings on balconies, thinking ahead to like air delivery from Amazon and things like that. So it's happening slowly, but it is changing a bit. It's on people's radar. So let me go into the last few slides around emerging trends. And this one is on Michigan. This one's over in Michigan, and it's a highway that is being studied as a connected corridor. And by that, I should take a moment here to clarify a definition. You can see in one of these bullet points that we're talking about CVs and AVs. CVs being connected vehicles and AVs being automated vehicles. A lot of times they get lumped together, just like I've done here, CVs and AVs, but it's important to recognize that they are different. So a connected vehicle does not need to be an automated, AKA driverless vehicle. Connected vehicle is really referring to the technology that it has on board the vehicle and the technology that's out in the infrastructure that's communicating. A classic example is tracking buses or shuttles so that riders can get realistic, up-to-date information on things like wait time and estimated arrivals. And so that's a connected vehicle. Again, it doesn't need to be driverless. And then you've got driverless vehicles, which probably almost by default are going to be connected just because of the amount of technology that they have on board. But I just want to take a moment to kind of clarify that. But what's interesting about this, it's right now it's in the planning stage. And when it started, it was 24 months long. It's been going on a couple of months now. So I've got here about 22 more months. And it's going to begin with buses and shuttles. And it really wants to work on changing the infrastructure and the right of way to prioritize moving people, not vehicles, which is good news from our TDM. Again, from our TDM lens and perspective, we want to try to move people and prioritize that movement as much as possible. A little note here on who's behind it and some insight into the actual finances of how it's working. Cavnu is the company that was created. It's actually a spinoff from Alphabet and Sidewalk Labs. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, and they're financing it. They're financing the feasibility analysis that's going on right now, and ultimately the project build out for a return on the actual spending of operation. So they're putting up the money now to hopefully get some ROI once it's actually up and running. And moving on to e-scooters. Look at this. You all are on the front page of the technology on this one. And that's true. That's legit true. And I was excited when I was talking with Nicole and preparing for this. I'll be honest, she brought this to my attention. And I think this is really great of bringing these automated scooters. And happy to hear in the chat, thoughts, ideas, or comments on this, as you all may know more about it than I do, but it's coming theoretically, and it's going to be short distances at first, just to kind of help clear the scooters out of the way. And I have to say, that was one of the big things about e-scooters is the companies just came in and dropped scooters all over cities without getting permission from the city governments. And there was some time where public agencies were kind of reeling and learning how to cope with this as people were just throwing scooters everywhere. And it was a mess. And now there's more sophistication about permits and making sure that there's a certain number of the vehicles that are actually being used and operated. Otherwise, they have to be pulled off the street. So there was a little bit of chaos around cities when those first came in. But here, let me transition. That's a little bit of a distracting visual there. But onto active transportation, and let me make this graphic a little bit larger so it's easier to see. This goes back to what I've said a couple of times about providing access and opportunity to different modes. If we want to ease the congestion that we have across the country and focus on moving people and not vehicles, this is one of the main sort of tools in the toolbox that transportation planners have. What I find interesting, you can cruise through the text that's on here, but what I found interesting when doing the research is that some of the research here in the footnote, that's probably a little too small to read, is 20 years old, quite literally 2001. And I just think it's fascinating that it's 2 decades old. We're still trying to promote in certain areas of the country this active transportation, and it's taken legislation at the state level and grant funding to actually allow some of these projects to take place and make sure that we're providing, again, just the access. If it's not built into the roads, if we don't have safe sidewalks, if there's not bike lanes, then a goal such as active transportation just isn't achievable, or even transit lanes. And again, just offering people access to these different modes. And my second to last topic, mobility hubs. This goes hand in hand with active transportation. Here's an example. Mobility hubs can be standalone structures, which is this graphic here. This is a project we worked on in Los Angeles several years ago. And it is kind of what the name implies is a multimodal hub of transportation. And again, providing that infrastructure that's safe, comfortable, informative, again, the connectivity, accurate arrival times and departure times, and providing a reliable, predictable user experience for that rider. That's what mobility hubs are about. And they can be standalone like this. They can be part of existing bus stations, bus transit ways, rail lines, etc. Here's a chart from from Los Angeles. And what we've got is the rows are a major type of mobility hub. So there's neighborhood level, central level, and regional level. And from the planning, again, a lot of it's at the planning stage still. And what the city of LA has done is assign elements at the different level of mobility hub that are vital, recommended, or optional. And so you can see those topics in the columns across the top: bicycle connections, vehicle connection, bus infrastructure. There's the information and signage. So they're starting to develop the framework, and I'll say sort of the definition or the scope of what should a mobility hub in a different part of the city, what services or amenities and connectivity should it have. And so you can see some of the planning work that's taking place there. And then lastly, for mobility hubs, I just wanted to put up a couple agencies for those that are interested. LADOT, SANDAG. SANDAG is a metropolitan planning organization, the MPO in San Diego County, so the southernmost county in California. And then the Shared Use Mobility Center, that's a nonprofit industry organization. Each of these agencies or organizations have got really great research and literature on mobility hubs in general. So I just wanted to share those with you all if you're interested in further follow-up. And then here's my last slide before we go into to Q&A. It's on food delivery and online shopping. It's a quote from a podcast I heard a couple of months ago from DHL, their United States CEO. The pandemic condensed a decade of e-commerce growth into 6 months. So I think that kind of sums it up of what people were grappling with, how we all with the safer at home orders just immediately, hunker down at home and just food, and online shopping just accelerated like it could only be done with a global pandemic. Here's I took a selfish moment to include, this is a picture of myself and my son. This is on the streets of LA a couple of months ago. This is an automated food delivery robot in the background. I saw this while we were driving. I literally hopped out of the car to take a picture of that because companies are experimenting with those exact automated food delivery robots. We're all, I think, familiar with the Amazon vans. And this starts to, I'm going to show a couple of pictures here in sequence that start to show some of the complexities in more like central business districts, main streets, downtowns, double parking, the congestion that's coming up as everybody's just hitting order on Amazon Prime. We're starting to block bike lanes and some of the infrastructure amenities that we hope to be providing in this mobility ecosystem. There's a trend toward online biking, obviously in certain climates and in certain cities, biking of the online delivery, I should say, for food, essentially food messengers. And then lastly, I just put this slide in this morning, actually, which was timely. The actual growth of food delivery apps during COVID-19. And on the left in the blue is new customer acquisition. So you can say anything that's the volume of space underneath this is the number of customers that they've acquired. And you can see in the gray, you can see the skyrocket, kind of similar to about a year before, but quite a higher trend line of everybody jumping onto the food apps. It tailored off a little bit, but people are still there on the apps ordering. This is just new acquisition, right? And has leveled out a little bit, but just a huge transition to people jumping on food apps. And then look at the total food sales, just skyrocketing during the pandemic. And all these companies hoping to maintain those customers and those orders, but also in parallel with this information, restaurant reservations are up 46% this May compared to May of 2019. So even pre-pandemic. So as things open up and people are more comfortable going back out into restaurants, that they're being flooded with more reservations. So we'll see if the online food delivery specifically can keep up the momentum it had during the pandemic. And with that, we can transition into the Q&A.
That was awesome. Thanks so much, David. Before we get to a few questions, it is fascinating where going through and seeing where the mobility data and how that really plays effect into everything, and seeing how our, we're still a smaller city, and so how Boise plays into that and what we'll see in the future. And you really can imagine where we will be. And something that we have that's really close is we have CityGo, where they have Cubic working on their integrated fare payment app that will combine a bunch of different services into one app for them. And so it's so close, and seeing all that data really actually play into effect in how we use that. And so I know we're really excited for CityGo and what they have in the future, and then seeing mobility hubs in the future, and actually visually being able to visually see that in the future. And the scooters, that'll be interesting. I'm still trying to really wrap my head around that. So we do have I'll have two questions here before we go on to the May in Motion award. So one question that we have is curious about what role accessibility plays in mobility. Accessibility in regards to the cost, ability, location, etc., especially in rural communities versus urban as well.
That's a really good question that I think comes up all the time and is becoming more and more prevalent, especially when doing things like competing for dollars. All these different projects across urban environments, rural environments are competing for the same dollars and trying to prove that their project provides the most ridership or the best benefit to the local community. And so this, I mean, I kind of feel this is, accessibility / equity, and it's a major component. And a lot of from a transit agency perspective, an equity analysis is becoming essentially crucial into being competitive on their projects. And I would say it's some of the things that come to the top of my mind are remembering how many people actually have smartphones and don't. It can feel, if you have a smartphone and all your family does, you start to feel like everybody has a smartphone, and that's not true. And so it's really important to go to the data and recognize that. Just as example, here in Los Angeles County, 75% of people have smartphones. It's a lot. It's obviously a vast majority, but that means a quarter of people don't. So ordering that 3-wheel automated scooter from Spin, not a possibility for them. And it is, from my perspective, it's all trying to get toward a better mobility ecosystem and allowing access and opportunities to these services, and also making sure that you're not leaving someone behind in a whole group of people. And so it's a challenge. I mean, that's the honest answer. It's making sure that these services are reaching everybody that they can and that should, and providing the best opportunity. But so it is a constant. It's a constant part of the assessment, and growing. It's growing. Agencies realizing that there has to be an equity analysis component to their projects.
Yeah, great question. One question we'll end with this one, since we will get on to our awards. The last question: how are designers in these spaces considering their unintended harms, such as to the environment, quality of life, food waste, and the economy? Big questions today.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm what jumps out at me first there, the food waste is actually really interesting, because I really remember, this is like 12 years ago now, learning that 30% of the food sold in the United States ends up getting thrown in the trash can. And I don't know if that number has changed much in that past 10 or 12 years. But that's a lot. That's inefficient when we think about the energy it takes to produce food and transport it and get it. Just our food distribution network is immensely complicated in that supply chain. And so and you talk about online ordering, the food delivery. I think of like the one-use plastics that are being used in all of these deliveries. It's a legitimate big deal question about food waste and the impact on the environment of that. And I personally, I don't have the answer, myself. I think, but bringing visibility to that and some education around it is one way in which we can all try to work toward a better solution on that. But it's true. I mean, cardboard is recyclable, but switching to cardboard, thinking about all the boxes being used with the package delivery, and cardboard use is at an all-time high as we're all ordering this stuff online. And so it's a really complicated life cycle assessment that is taking place with all this stuff.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much, David. We appreciate your time and energy, and we look forward to one day having you here in Boise, so you can come check out the scooters. So
I would love to.
All right, excellent. We will transition here to our awards, and May in Motion isn't a May in Motion without these two May in Motion mavens to spread the message of smart commuting, even though it could be through a Zoom staff meeting. There were many of those this year. So without further ado, we'll have Kathleen, Godfrey, and Christina Torkelson are here to announce the May in Motion Award recipients of 2021.
Thanks, Nicole, and thank you to all of the participating businesses, organizations, and commuters that made May in Motion a success this year. Although our COVID-conscious spin on May in Motion meant many changes in how we get to work and how we promote safe, smart commute options, the impact and the results were still very impressive. Over 13,000 smart commutes were made in May, totaling nearly 200,000 miles removed from the roadways and a ton, actually 76 tons of CO2 from the air. We appreciate everyone who logged their smart commute trips on Share the Ride Idaho, and encourage you to keep it up and do that all summer and all year. And we have a look at how these 13,000 smart commutes broke down. So this probably comes as no surprise to everyone, but telework or working from home moved up the ranks from last place to first this year. But the rest of the modes, such as biking, carpooling, walking, using transit, and fan pooling, stayed relatively the same, with biking being the ever popular way to get to work in May. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for, let's reveal the May in Motion Award recipients.
So welcome to the awards portion of the ceremony, the moment you've all been waiting for. The winners, May in Motion 2021, Platinum Awards, Ada County Highway District, Biomark, Boise Bicycle Project, Boise Metro Chamber, Boise State University, Capital City Development Corporation, Cole Architects, Compass, Department of Environmental Quality, and Ørsted Architects. Federal Highway Administration, Forsgren Associates, Healthwise, Hummel Architects, Idaho Office for Refugees, Micron Technology, Oliver Russell and Associates, Stoltz, and Valley Regional Transit. Congratulations, Platinum winners. It's a lot of effort on your part. We appreciate it. On to our gold members. Drake Cooper, Idaho Commission for Libraries, Insight Architects, Just Eat Local, Local Highway Technical Assistance Council, St. Luke's Health System. Congratulations, gold winners. Our silver winners, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Southwest Idaho, HDR, In the Bag Promotions, Jacobs, KPFF Consulting Engineers, REI, US Ecology, and Your Health Idaho. Congratulations to our silver winners. And on to our bronze winners, AECOM, Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections, Idaho Walk Bike Alliance, TO Engineers. Congratulations, bronze winners. And our honorable mention, A Body and Mind Health Services, Ada County, City of Boise, City of Kuna, CSHQA, Cushing Terrell, Fast Enterprises, Forestel Design, Georgia Cycles, Idaho Smart Growth, Idaho Division of Human Resources and Financial Management, J.R. Simplot, Keller Association, Kittleson and Associates, Spaceport, and we thank you all for your participation in May in Motion. It was amazing what everyone has done, and we appreciate it. Rough Rider says thank you. He appreciates it. And don't forget to pick up your award at the awards pickup ceremony on June 24th at 11:30 till 1, Julia Davis Park in the Agriculture Pavilion. Thank you so much. Back to you, Nicole.
All right, thanks May in Motion Mavens and Ruff for a successful reopening of May in Motion. And congratulations to all May in Motion award recipients. So before we go, we have one more award given by our partners and May in Motion sponsor CityGo. Please welcome Wayne Resevy, Communications Manager at CityGo.
Thanks so much, Nicole. As part of CityGo's mission to promote sustainable transportation throughout Boise and the Treasure Valley, we've partnered with Valley Regional Transit to provide 3 months of free ad placement on a VRT bus to the CityGo member organization with the highest percentage of employees participating in this year's May in Motion. This year, we are proud to recognize Stoltz Marketing Group as our sustainability leader. With approximately 70% of their employees walking, biking, busing, or telecommuting, they've demonstrated a commitment to getting folks out of their cars and into more sustainable and active forms of transportation. And we couldn't be happier. Thanks for rolling with us, Stoltz, and thank you, CityGo members. And of course, thanks ACHD Commuteride, and have a wonderful rest of your May in Motion.
Awesome. Thanks, Wayne. And way to go, Stoltz Marketing. We want to thank you for spending your extended lunchtime with us in celebrating this year's May in Motion award recipients. We look forward to working with you all in the next couple and upcoming months. And of course, we look forward to seeing you all in person this next year for the May in Motion Awards luncheon. So everybody have a great day. And happy Thursday. Thank you.